Hello everyone. I know you watched this video to accompany you to sleep. So if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to tell me where you are from and what time you watched this video. Let's jump straight into the story. Story 1. In 1995, a string of disappearances haunted a small-town high school in rural Ohio, but no one ever made a connection. Students were labeled runaways. Teachers moved on, until one janitor's death in 2022 revealed a hidden basement, a locker full of keepsakes, and a list of names, all students who never came home. As investigators reopened cold cases with chilling similarities, the question became unavoidable. How did a killer roam school hallways for decades, hiding bodies when no one thought to look? November 4th, 2022, Shelbyville, Ohio. Thompson High School. When the janitor didn't show up to unlock the school gates on Friday morning, no one panicked. Walt Driscoll had worked at Thompson High for 37 years. He had a reputation for being quiet, punctual, and strange, but also dependable. If he didn't show, there was a reason. It was the students who noticed first. They stood outside the school side door, usually propped open by Walt's tool cart by 6:45 a.m. But that morning, there was nothing but frost on the handle and a silence that seemed unnatural. Principal Kara Milford, annoyed at the delay, used her own keys to unlock the front entrance. As she walked through the dark hallway toward Walt's office, she noticed something odd. The air smelled musty, like something had been left to rot. The final discovery. Walt Driscoll was found in his office chair, slumped backward, a half-empty thermos of coffee on the desk. At first, it looked like a heart attack. Natural, peaceful. But then came the second discovery, the one that would rip open the town's buried past. An officer with the Shelbyville Police Department, sent to assist with the investigation, spotted a ring of scorched floor tile behind Walt's desk, almost like something had been burned and then extinguished. When they pried up the tile, they found something far worse than smoke damage. They found a key, small, rusted, and wrapped in electrical tape. The key was tagged with a red plastic label. One word written in shaky handwriting. Locker. Who was Walter Driscoll? To understand the weight of what was found, you have to understand who Walt was. Born in 1954, Walter Driscoll was a lifelong Shelbyville resident. Never married. No known children. Lived in the same house on Elm Street since 1982. He started working at Thompson High in 1985 and quickly became a fixture of invisibility. Always there, always quiet, always watching. Students described him as weird but harmless. Teachers said he was efficient, if a little too private. He took vacation once every few years and never spoke about his life beyond the school walls. He was the kind of guy you didn't notice, said longtime English teacher Maria Wolf. But he always noticed you. The locker no one used. After the coroner removed Walt's body, Principal Milford gave officers access to Walt's maintenance keys. But when they compared the key found beneath the tile with the rest of the set, they found no match. It was older, thinner, like something from a different era. Detective Raymond Kloss with the Shelbyville PD was the first to make the connection. He remembered a hallway in the lower west wing, originally part of the school's old vocational wing, that had a row of rusted lockers long since sealed off during renovations in the early 2000s. The school called it Dead Hall. Most students didn't even know it existed. The door that shouldn't have opened. On November 5th, Kloss and two officers descended into the basement level with bolt cutters, the strange key, and a maintenance flashlight. The hallway smelled of mildew and time. Paint curled off the cinder block walls. Old science posters hung like funeral drapes. Halfway down the hall was a locker with a padlock that had been fused shut by age. The key clicked, and the door swung open. What they found inside wasn't a mop or books. It was a shoebox covered in dust and sealed with yellowed packing tape. On the lid, written in red marker, property of THS. Inside were photographs, dozens of teenagers, some smiling, some crying, some asleep, and all taken at unusual angles, through windows from rooftops, and in one case, through a locker vent. The missing list. Within the box was also a crumpled, folded paper with a crude hand-drawn grid of the school's layout. On the back was a list of names. 17 in total. The names were familiar. Too familiar. Because between 1992 and 2001, Thompson High School had exactly 17 students reported missing. Every case was closed as a presumed runaway or family abduction. None were solved. The youngest was 14. The oldest, 18. The final name on the list? Melissa Farron, 2001. The last student to vanish without a trace. The map to the forgotten room. Detectives spent the next 72 hours searching the school grounds. They scanned blueprints, looked for architectural oddities, and interviewed retired staff. Then a retired shop teacher named Harold Bixby, now 84, came forward. He remembered something odd. Back in the day, there was a sub-basement below the old boiler room. It was used for storage before the flood of '89. We sealed it off, thought no one had keys anymore. But someone did. Walt Driscoll, beneath the school. On November 9th, 2022, investigators unearthed a trapdoor beneath the boiler room. Beneath a layer of glued-down linoleum, it led to a staircase. And below it, a room no one had entered in over 30 years. The smell hit first. Decay, earth, something else. When the flashlight beam landed on the far wall, they froze. There, arranged in rows like some macabre collection, were 17 high school IDs, each pinned to the wall beneath a yearbook photo. And beneath those, bones, some buried in piles, some partially preserved in homemade wooden crates. Most disturbingly, they found personal items, bracelets, report cards, a band leather jacket, a folded prom dress, and under a stack of yearbooks, a journal, Walt's journal. The notebook was worn and covered in grime. Inside, it wasn't a confession, but a catalog. Dates of disappearance, locker numbers, hair color, weight, attitude. Walt had ranked them like school supplies. Some entries contained drawings, students sitting in class, viewed from the corner of a room. Some of the pages were splattered with something that looked like blood, but there were no apologies, no remorse, just numbers and names. The last entry, #17, quiet girl, no one will come looking. The first forensic reports. By December 1st, 2022, the first identifications were made through dental records. Melissa Farron, 17, last seen in 2001. Bradley Connor, 15, vanished 1997. Eileen Torres, 16, last seen 1993. All presumed runaways. All buried beneath the school they once walked through every day. Small town shockwaves. Shelbyville was a town of 11,000. Everyone knew someone who knew someone. Families who had long moved on, or thought they had closure, were suddenly thrust back into mourning. A memorial wall went up outside Thompson High, and the media descended. CNN, NBC, and True Crime Daily called it the janitor's crypt. One chilling detail emerged above all. Every student who vanished had detention the day they disappeared. And the one person always in the room for after-school detention? Walter Driscoll. The town of Shelbyville finds itself facing a question no one wants to ask. How did a killer hide 17 bodies in a school for nearly 3 decades? And what clues did he leave behind that might point to an accomplice? Someone who may still be out there, because buried in the locker behind that trapdoor, beneath Walt's final journal entry, was one more list, 3 more names, all dated 2022, and none of them had been reported missing yet. March 11th, 1992, Shelbyville, Ohio, Thompson High School. At exactly 3:42 p.m., Amanda Delaney, a 15-year-old sophomore with perfect attendance and a spotless disciplinary record, walked into room B 107 for her first detention. By 4:15 p.m., she was gone. No one saw her leave. No one saw where she went. And no one ever saw her again. The girl everyone forgot. Amanda Delaney's name wasn't famous, not even in her own town. Her case had never made national headlines, wasn't featured on missing persons billboards, and never inspired candlelight vigils beyond the one night her church youth group gathered with flickering wax and confused tears. Why? Because Amanda wasn't the kind of girl who was expected to disappear. She wasn't troubled. She wasn't rebellious. She was a model student, which, in a town like Shelbyville, often worked against you. Because if you disappeared, people assumed you chose to. The pressure, the expectations, the boredom. That was a theory in 1992. The wrong theory. A detention that shouldn't have happened. The reason Amanda ended up in detention was already suspect. According to school records, she was given a 30-minute detention for excessive tardiness. But Amanda had never been late to class. Not once. When her parents pressed the administration about it, Vice Principal Mark Shearer claimed there had been a clerical mix-up. We believe it was a scheduling error. She shouldn't have been there, he had told them. But it was harmless. A minor oversight. That oversight placed Amanda in a nearly empty school after hours, with only one adult on duty. The janitor, Walter Driscoll. The original investigation. In the days that followed Amanda's disappearance, Shelbyville PD launched what they called at the time a limited area sweep. They searched her locker, her bedroom, the train station. They did not search Thompson High School, and they certainly didn't search beneath it. Her disappearance was quickly labeled a voluntary runaway after a classmate claimed Amanda had mentioned wanting to get out of this town. That classmate later admitted she made it up after a teacher pressured her to ease the school's image. The Delaney's fight. Amanda's parents, Ron and Trudy Delaney, refused to accept the narrative. Ron posted flyers in surrounding counties. Trudy quit her job to organize weekly search parties. They canvassed bus stops, libraries, truck stops, anywhere a girl might have fled to with no money and no plan. But the town grew tired. People stopped calling back. Police suggested therapy. And by the time the school year ended, Amanda's name was a whisper. Walt's role re-examined. After the 2022 discovery, investigators reopened Amanda's case, starting with the only staff member on campus during her disappearance, Walter Driscoll. A 38-year-old custodian at the time, Walt had worked for only 6 years at the school. His alibi? I was in the East Wing fixing a busted heater. Never saw the girl. That statement was taken at face value, despite the heater being reported fixed the day before. But what no one asked in 1992 was, why was Amanda given detention to begin with? The paper trail that wasn't. In 2022, Detective Raymond Kloss began hunting for the original detention slip. He didn't find one, but he did find a handwritten list inside a decades-old admin ledger in storage. In it, Walt's name appeared frequently, not just as a janitor, but as someone who initialed disciplinary slips. Back then, Thompson High allowed non-teaching staff to support administrative duties in light of budget cuts, which meant Walt could file, alter, or even create detention records. And for Amanda Delaney, there was no signature beside the note, just a pair of initials. WD, revisiting the day. Kloss pulled school security reports from the 1990s, back when schools still used VHS tapes to record hallways. The tapes had been long destroyed, but one maintenance log, handwritten and preserved by a now-deceased school secretary, noted, March 11, 92, B. 107 light bulb replaced after reported outage during detention. WD completed. 4:30 p.m., which meant Walt had been in the same room Amanda was last seen in at the exact time she vanished. Yet he told police he was across the school. He never corrected the record. A pattern begins. As investigators cross-referenced the names in Walt's journal and the box recovered from the secret locker, they found something bone-chilling. 7 of the 17 victims had similarly suspicious detentions. All appeared to be for minor or non-existent infractions. All occurred during periods when Walt was the only staff member known to be in the building. And in every case, the student had either been orphaned from a single-parent home, experiencing emotional or academic struggles. Amanda Delaney checked all 3 boxes. Her mother had battled depression. Her father worked late shifts. And Amanda had just failed her midterm in algebra. Inside Amanda's locker, for years, her locker sat untouched. It was reassigned every few years to new students who never knew its history. After the basement discovery, police decided to reopen and fully inspect it. Taped beneath the top shelf, invisible unless you crane your head just right, was a note, likely slipped in and hidden during her final school day. Written in purple pen, it read, "He watches us leave. I think he has keys to everything. Yesterday, I dropped my notebook in the hallway. By the time I turned around, it was gone. Found it later. Pages missing. I think someone's reading about us." A voice from the past. The Delaney's, now in their 70s, were contacted with the news. Their daughter's bones have been found, confirmed by dental records and a hair sample preserved in her old brush. Her cause of death was never officially determined, but one bone showed fracture trauma. Another bore knife markings. Ron Delaney wept on local news. Trudy, fragile and frail, simply said, "They told us she ran away, but we knew better. Now the world knows too." Amanda Delaney was the first, but as the journal reveals, she was only the beginning. In the next chapter, we will follow the case of Bradley Connor, a teenage boy who disappeared in 1997, the only male on Walt Driscoll's list, and the only student who fought back. October 8, 1997, Shelbyville, Ohio, Thompson High School, at 4:07 p.m. Sophomore Bradley Connor slipped through the side door of the school and disappeared into the October twilight. He never made it home. His mother thought he had basketball practice. His coach thought he'd skipped. The truth? He was already buried beneath the school. The outlier on the list. Bradley was the only male name among the 17 victims recovered in 2022. At first, investigators thought it was a mistake. Perhaps a name falsely attributed or included for reasons unrelated to Walt Driscoll's crimes. But the bones didn't lie. In the second crate unearthed beneath the boiler room, they found the remains of a tall male teenager, confirmed through dental records to be Bradley James Connor, age 16. The find shocked the task force. He didn't fit the typical profile. Not female, not emotionally vulnerable, not isolated. But as they dug deeper into Bradley's life, one thing became terrifyingly clear. He hadn't been a victim by accident. He'd become a victim because he had seen something. The student journalist. Bradley was a curious kid. Smart, outspoken, a little too bold for his own good. He wrote for the school newspaper, the Timberline Times, and had recently started a series called Secrets of the School. It was supposed to be funny. He'd write about ghost stories, old blueprints, forgotten storage closets, and faculty rumors. But the deeper he went, the more serious his column became. In the weeks before his disappearance, Bradley started asking real questions. Why were certain basement areas off limits? Why were some old maintenance reports missing pages? Why did students disappear from detention rosters? The confrontation. A retired teacher named Miss Rhonda Abernathy, who taught journalism, remembered an uncomfortable moment a week before Bradley vanished. He came into class late, kind of shaken, said he saw something weird near the boiler room. She remembered him saying, "I think someone's been going down there. At night, I saw a light and then someone turned it off." He asked her if janitors were allowed access to the sub-basement. Rhonda laughed it off, said, "There's no sub-basement." Bradley didn't smile. The note in the camera. When Bradley disappeared, the school initially claimed he ran away due to academic stress. A failing grade in geometry was used to paint a picture of a troubled boy buckling under pressure. But a week after he vanished, his disposable camera was found in a bush behind the gym. The camera had water damage, but the film inside was salvageable. It contained 6 photos. 5 were typical school day shots. The 6th, a photo of a stairwell, concrete, rusted railing, a sign reading, "Storage access restricted." It was taken in the sub-basement, the same one rediscovered in 2022. On the back of the photo, written in faint pencil, "He goes down there at night. I saw him again. It's always when he thinks no one's watching." The locker incident. 3 days before Bradley disappeared, he told a friend named Jeremy Collins that someone had broken into his locker. "My notes are gone," Bradley had said. Not all of them, just the ones about Walt. Jeremy dismissed it as paranoia. But when interviewed again in 2022, Jeremy confessed something he'd never told police. Brad was scared that week. I mean really scared. said he thought someone had been in his house. A match in the journal. Walt Driscoll's handwritten journal included a chilling entry dated October 1st, 1997, 1 week before Bradley vanished. Boy is poking around. Loud. Smart. Too smart. Not like the others. Curious, but stupid. Need to get the camera. Need to make it look like a choice. Underneath that entry was a single phrase. Locker 226. Final. That was Bradley's locker number. The final afternoon. On the day of his disappearance. Bradley had reportedly told his mother he would be late because of an interview for his column. She said he was excited. He told her, "If what I find out today is real, I might break the biggest story in the school's history." Detectives now believe Bradley confronted Walt that afternoon, possibly in the boiler room. Whether he threatened to go to the police or simply got too close to something hidden, one fact is certain. Bradley never left that school alive. What the bones revealed. Forensic pathologists determined that Bradley's remains showed signs of blunt force trauma to the skull. There was also evidence that he had been restrained, possibly tied to a chair or pipe. Among the items found near his remains, a cracked pair of wireframe glasses, the charred corner of a student newspaper draft, a ballpoint pen engraved with property of THS Journalism Club. One page, half burned, was recovered. It read, "Some janitors clean, some bury." The cover-up. Why wasn't his case treated as a potential homicide in 1997? Investigators now suspect that school administrators either covered it up or turned a blind eye. Vice Principal Mark Shearer, the same one who mishandled Amanda Delaney's detention years earlier, signed Bradley's attendance out as left campus voluntarily. That timestamp? 4:12 p.m., exactly 5 minutes after Bradley was last seen alive. Police now believe Shearer was complicit, or at minimum, negligent. He died in 2008. The missing list grows. Of the 3 additional names found on Walt's 2022 new list, one matched the current student at the time of his death, Kayla Benson, a 15-year-old sophomore. She was reportedly seen speaking with Walt a week before his passing about volunteering for a school cleanup program. She told investigators she had no memory of signing up, but felt pressured. She is now under protection and being monitored for any potential grooming patterns Walt may have started. The other 2 names remain unidentified, but police now believe Walt wasn't working alone, because in the back of his journal, written in different handwriting, was a note. "Can't let it end with 17. We continue. You know what to do." Initials below, MS. Bradley Connor wasn't like the others. He didn't get tricked into detention. He didn't get led into the dark. He walked into it, flashlight in hand, trying to expose the truth. And for that he died. But his camera, his photos, and his words, preserved through time, would help unravel the darkness hiding in plain sight. Next, we turn to the girl who was supposed to be the final victim, but escaped. Melissa Farron. April 3rd, 2001, Shelbyville, Ohio. Thompson High School. Melissa Farron never saw herself as a survivor. In fact, for years, she wasn't even sure what she had survived. She only knew that something happened during her sophomore year, something that changed her forever. She lost time. She lost sleep. She lost friends. And no one believed her until 2022, when the bones were uncovered, when her name was found on Walt Driscoll's final list, and when investigators discovered a stained shirt buried in a rusted metal box beneath the school, with her initials stitched into the collar. A different kind of disappearance. Melissa wasn't listed as a runaway. She didn't officially go missing. There was no Amber Alert, no flyers, no search teams, because technically she came back. On April 4th, 2001, she showed up at school after missing 1 day. She had a black eye. She walked with a limp. Her blouse was ripped at the seam. She said nothing. When teachers asked, she shrugged it off. "I tripped over my dog." When the school nurse asked if anyone had hurt her, she said, "No one you know." The day before, Melissa was a straight-A student, active in band and on the yearbook team. Not the kind of kid you'd expect to end up in a killer's journal. But the day before she vanished, She'd been assigned detention for disruptive behavior. She told her best friend, Jenny Markham, that she corrected a teacher who made a math error and was punished for being mouthy. Melissa thought it was bizarre, but she wasn't worried. "I'll be in and out," she told Jenny. She walked into room B, 107 at 3:30 p.m. According to school records, no staff members signed her out. She reappeared the next morning at 7:12 a.m., sitting alone on the gym bleachers, staring at the floor. She never spoke about what happened. Until now, the interview, 2022, when investigators located Melissa after the basement discovery. She was living in Columbus, working as a freelance editor under a different name. She was hesitant to speak at first. She asked if Walt was really dead. When confirmed, she whispered, "Then maybe I can finally stop locking my windows." Melissa agreed to a closed-door interview. What she revealed stunned the entire task force. Her story: Melissa recalled being alone in the detention room for nearly 20 minutes before Walt appeared. He wasn't supposed to be there, but he came in, turned off the hallway lights, and locked the door from the inside. He didn't say anything. He just stared. She said he approached her slowly, pulling out a chair and sitting across from her. He asked if I liked riddles. She nodded. He asked, "What has many doors but hides only one?" She said she didn't know. He smiled. Then he whispered, "The basement. The trapdoor." Melissa claimed Walt told her he needed help with something just for a minute. She followed him out of the room, down the back hall, past the boiler room. She remembered the smell first, then the trapdoor. He told her, "I lost my keys. They fell down there." Melissa hesitated. Then he shoved her. She tumbled down wooden steps, scraping her hands and slamming her hip. The room was pitch dark. When the light came on, she saw drawings on the wall, photos, old textbooks, and a chair with restraints. She screamed. To escape, Walt descended slowly, humming. He reached into a tool bag, pulled out a cloth and what looked like a bottle. Melissa scrambled, her legs numb from the fall, but she grabbed something heavy, a rusted wrench, and swung wildly. She didn't know if she hit him. She just heard a grunt. Then she crawled past him, up the steps. The door was closed, locked, but in her panic, she slammed her shoulder into it, again and again, until it cracked. She ran barefoot through the boiler room, blood trailing from her elbow. She never stopped running until she reached the football field. No one saw her, and she told no one. Why she stayed silent. Melissa admitted she'd blocked much of it out. She never told her parents. Her father was dying of cancer at the time. Her mother was fragile, and who would have believed me? I didn't even believe myself. She transferred schools the following semester, moved away for college, changed her name, started over, but she kept the wrench. Still rusted, still bent. She called it insurance. Recovered evidence. Investigators returned to the trapdoor Melissa described. Beneath it, in a compartment beneath the main room, they found a rusted wrench, a blood-stained cloth, a Polaroid with Melissa's face, partially obscured, eyes wide. The timestamp on the photo matched the date of her detention. She had not imagined it. And the blood on the cloth? It matched Melissa's DNA. The journal entry. Walt's journal from 2001 held a single page about her. #17. Scream like the others, but faster. Nearly got me. Lost a tooth. She won't talk. She's too scared. I can see it in her face. He was right. Melissa didn't talk for 21 years. But now she was ready. Melissa Farron survived because she fought back, because she refused to be one more name in a box beneath the floor, and because somewhere deep inside her, something said, "Run now or die underground." But Walt had other victims after Melissa, names not found on his official list, names added later. Which brings us to Chapter 5, the girl with the missing yearbook photo, a forgotten student whose disappearance was blamed on a clerical error until her bones were found. June 2004, Shelbyville, Ohio. Thompson High School yearbook room. When the final draft of the 2004 Thompson High School yearbook was approved, it contained a glaring omission that almost no one noticed. A senior named Kaylee Dorsey was listed in the student index, but her photo was missing. A blank gray box sat beside her name. The caption read, "Photo not available." No one questioned it. Not the editors, not the teachers, not the parents. Because by then, Kaylee was already gone. The invisible senior. Kaylee Dorsey wasn't a social butterfly. She kept to herself. Worked 2 part-time jobs. Lived with her aunt after her parents died in a car crash in 2000. She didn't attend prom. Didn't show up for senior night. Didn't even collect her cap and gown. When the school secretary called her house to ask about her absence, her aunt reportedly said, "Kaylee moved out. She's 18. Not my responsibility anymore." That was the end of it, or so they thought. The paperwork black hole. When the Cold Case Task Force revisited all 17 names on Walt Driscoll's list, Kaylee stood out. Because until then, no one even realized she was missing. There had never been a report filed. No missing persons bulletin. No police search. Just a line in the school attendance log that read, "Graduation status incomplete." But her name was there in Walt's final notebook. Entry number 15. Quiet. Follows patterns. Eats lunch alone in room B, 103. Nobody picks her up. She won't be missed. The yearbook committee speaks. In 2022, investigators tracked down Maya Tran, then the yearbook editor, who had worked with Kaylee briefly on a layout project. Maya remembered something odd. She showed up for one photo session, but Walt said there was a scheduling issue and she'd have to come back later. That second session never happened, and when the committee inquired, Walt allegedly said, "She's already withdrawn, probably moved." Nobody pushed further. After all, it was Walt, the janitor who'd been there longer than anyone. He always seemed to know what was going on. The locker key. During the sub-basement excavation, police recovered a sealed envelope with a pink sticker marked KD. Inside was a locker key, a faded bus pass, and a small Polaroid of Kaylee, smiling, eyes distant, seated at a cafeteria table. There was writing on the back of the photo, "She'll be last, then quiet forever." Kaylee was number 15. Melissa Farron was number 17, which raised a disturbing possibility. Who was number 16? And where was their body? Finding the body. Beneath a loose panel in the northwest corner of the hidden sub-basement, cadaver dogs alerted to a shallow grave, covered with crushed brick and plastic sheeting. Inside, they found a female skeleton in near pristine condition due to the dry containment. Dental records confirmed the identity. Kaylee Dorsey, age 18. Estimated time of death, June 2nd, 2004, the last day of classes at Thompson High. She never graduated. She never left town. She had been buried 20 feet below the floor. She walked every day. Why no one looked? Investigators were stunned that no one, not a teacher, not a classmate, not even her guardian, had raised a red flag when she vanished. But the truth was worse than neglect. Records showed that Walt had submitted official withdrawal paperwork with forged signatures. He claimed Kaylee had moved to attend trade school in Cincinnati. The phone number listed belonged to a disconnected line. The address was a condemned building. Yet the withdrawal was accepted because Walt had been doing this for years. The pattern of erasure. Detectives now believe Walt had perfected a system of manipulation and concealment. Isolate a vulnerable student, emotionally, socially, or logistically. Assign false disciplinary actions to position them alone in the building. Fabricate withdrawal paperwork, or convince guardians they'd left voluntarily. Erase them from yearbooks, graduation rolls, and attendance records. In Kaylee's case, he went further. He deleted her school photo from the internal server, and when someone printed a proof sheet by mistake, he shredded it. The janitor had become the editor of memory. The aunt speaks. Kaylee's aunt, Charlene Dorsey, was re-interviewed in 2022. She admitted she hadn't seen Kaylee for a few days before graduation. She had assumed Kaylee left for a job out of state. She said she didn't press the issue because we didn't really get along. I thought she wanted out. When shown the photo of Kaylee's remains, she broke down. I didn't know. I just didn't know. Walt's obsession. Inside Walt's personal storage locker at a nearby facility, authorities found scrapbooks. One was labeled, "The Ones Who Faded." Kaylee's photo appeared multiple times, always candid, always from afar. One eating alone in the library, another walking in the rain. In the margins beside her photos, he wrote, "Doesn't know she matters." Perfect. It was a final straw for investigators. This wasn't just murder. It was the psychological slow roasting of forgotten children. Walt didn't pick his victims randomly. He picked the ones the world forgot and made sure they stayed forgotten. Kaylee Dorsey vanished without a sound. No alert, no search party, no headlines. Only a blank square in a yearbook where her face should have been. But now, nearly 2 decades later, the silence has been broken, and with her case reopened, investigators are closing in on something else. The name between Kaylee and Melissa on Walt's list, #16, was intentionally scratched out. Why? Because Walt didn't kill her. He couldn't, because she left town before he could finish the job. We meet the near-miss victim who vanished on her own terms and returned with a vengeance. The one that got away twice. Name redacted on the list. That's what detectives found on entry number 16 in Walt Driscoll's journal. Not a name, not a date, just a thin black line, intentionally scribbled over as if to erase history itself. But forensics showed the ink was layered over faint pencil markings. With the help of digital enhancement, they reconstructed the name, Elena Packard, 2002. But here's the twist. Elena wasn't dead. She was alive. And she had a story she'd never told anyone, until now. The quiet transfer. Elena Packard had been a junior at Thompson High during the 2001 to 2002 school year. By all accounts, she was shy, bookish, and kept mostly to herself. She was raised by her grandfather, a retired postal worker, after her parents died in a house fire when she was 9. Her grades were excellent. Her behavior was spotless. Then, in February 2002, she withdrew from school unexpectedly. The official reason? Family relocation to Utah. But Elena never moved to Utah. In fact, she never even told the school where she went. Because something had happened. Something she couldn't explain. Something terrifying. The flashback. When detectives located Elena in 2022, now 37, living in Asheville, North Carolina, under her married name, she was hesitant to talk. It had been 20 years. But when shown the recovered page from Walt's journal, her face went pale. She whispered, "He called me his butterfly. I've never told anyone what happened in that hallway." The encounter. It was late January 2002. Elena had agreed to stay after school to help organize library books as part of a volunteer credit. She stayed late. Too late. Around 5:15 p.m., the librarian had already left, and the front doors were locked. As Elena gathered her backpack, she heard footsteps echoing down the main hallway. When she turned the corner, Walt was standing there, not with his cart, not with any tools, just standing, smiling. The conversation. Walt asked if she needed help getting out. She nodded. He said, "I have a key to a shortcut door. Not many people know about it." She followed him, hesitantly, down a narrow passage between the gym and the auditorium. They reached a maintenance closet. He opened the door. Inside, it was pitch black. He said, "Just step in. I'll hit the light." She paused. He nudged her shoulder. That's when she felt it. His hand wasn't on her shoulder. It was on her wrist, holding tight. The panic. Elena yanked free and bolted. She ran barefoot after her shoes slipped off. She didn't look back. She didn't stop until she reached the science wing, where a night school instructor, Mr. Ben Lartin, found her curled under a bench, shaking. She told him she had gotten lost. She said nothing about Walt, because she didn't know how to say it. Not then. The transfer. Elena told her grandfather everything that night. He believed her instantly. He had always distrusted Walt, saying he gave him funeral parlor vibes. By the end of the week, her grandfather had submitted an emergency withdrawal and filed for a transfer to an online school. They moved within the month. No explanation. No forwarding address. Just gone. Walt's journal entry. Entry number 16 in the journal was brief, but chilling. Tried again. She ran. Fast. Slippery. Could have had her. Too noisy. Another time. But another time never came. And in his final journal, written just weeks before his death, Walt added a postscript to that same entry. She lives in shadows now. Maybe she'll come home. Butterflies always return to where they were pinned. The confrontation, 2022, when Elena heard Walt was dead and that he'd been behind the disappearances. She cried for over an hour. Then she got quiet. Then she asked if she could see the room where it happened. With 2 detectives, she returned to Thompson High. They walked the back hallway, past the auditorium, to the maintenance closet. It had been turned into a storage room. But when they opened it, she froze. Because inside, still taped to the inner wall, was a photograph, faded, curled, and water-damaged. It was of a butterfly pinned in a shadow box, and scribbled beneath it, in Walt's handwriting, "Missed one, the implications." Elena's story changed everything. It confirmed that Walt had failed, at least once. It meant his murders weren't just about compulsion or power. They were about control, about precision. He hadn't expected anyone to get away. But when they did, it haunted him. And according to the forensics team, Walt had kept a separate file titled Unfinished Wings, dedicated to 2 names. Elena Packard, Kayla Benson, the student he had approached weeks before his death. Kayla never even knew she was being groomed. But Elena, she had known for 20 years. Walt Driscoll kept meticulous records of everyone he targeted, except the ones who slipped through his fingers. And those were the ones that kept him up at night. The butterflies. The girls he almost caught, but couldn't cage. But now that investigators have reassembled the full timeline, one more anomaly remains. One entry with no name, just a symbol. A ghost victim. A blank spot in the ledger. And according to Elena, there may be a reason for that. Because before she left town, she saw one more person in that hallway. Not a student. Not Walt. Someone else. And that person may still be alive. The accomplice. We uncovered the secret Walt took to his grave, and the man who may have helped him hide it. The question was never just how Walt Driscoll got away with murder. It was how he did it alone for nearly 3 decades. The school never noticed. The parents never suspected. The police never dug deep enough. But as the investigation closed in, a chilling possibility emerged from the shadows. Maybe Walt wasn't alone. Maybe someone was helping him. Someone inside. Someone with keys. Someone with authority. Elena's memory. In her 2022 interview, Elena Packard described one final, haunting detail from a night she fled the maintenance hallway in 2002. As she darted down the corridor and glanced back, just once, she saw 2 things. Walt reaching toward her, and another man standing behind him in the shadows, watching. She didn't recognize the second man. At least, not then. He didn't say anything, didn't move. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, almost like he wanted her to run. When Elena was shown archived photos of staff from the 2000 to 2003 school years, she pointed to one man, without hesitation. That's him. That's the man I saw. His name? Craig Delmont. Assistant vice principal. The vice principal no one remembered. Delmont wasn't a name that had ever come up in the original investigation. He worked at Thompson High from 1998 to 2004 before transferring to a private academy in Indiana. He kept a low profile, never married, no social media, but his name appeared 3 times in Walt Driscoll's recovered journals. Entry from 1999. CD says B, 107 will be open after hours again. Said it's better if it's unsupervised. Fine by me. Entry from 2001. Told CD about EP slipping past me. He said, don't worry, next time. And in 2003, asked if he still wanted in. Said, only when it's clean. He's worse than me. The implications were staggering. The locker discovery. Investigators returned to the hidden sub-basement after Elena's statement and began probing an unsealed crawlspace near the northeast corner. There, they found an old metal filing drawer wrapped in 2 layers of tarpaulin. Inside were VHS tapes labeled with dates ranging from 1995 to 2003, dozens of printed photographs, most candid, most covert, a wooden box marked CD. Final, the box contained a faculty badge for Craig Delmont, an empty syringe, a burned matchbook from a motel 5 miles outside town, and a single yellowed post-it note that read, "One watched, one took, the other buried." Handwriting matched Walt's journal. The tapes. The VHS tapes were degraded, but salvageable. Forensic video experts digitized and restored them. They weren't security footage. They were recordings from inside the sub-basement. Mostly static, dark shapes, brief audio. But one tape, dated April 3rd, 2001, captured part of Melissa Farron's escape. At 4:17 p.m., you can see a girl, Melissa, stumbling, screaming, Walt reaching for her, and a second figure entering frame briefly. The man doesn't intervene. He simply stands in the hallway for 5 seconds, then turns and disappears. Investigators identified the jacket the man was wearing, a tan windbreaker with a THS logo, identical to one worn by Craig Delmont in the 2001 yearbook. Where is he now? When detectives tracked Delmont to a remote cabin property outside Fort Wayne, Indiana, they found it abandoned. Inside, dusty boxes of old-school records, newspaper clippings of local disappearances from other counties, and a trapdoor in the floor of the bedroom, leading to a storm cellar. Inside that cellar, a cot, chains, and an old desk with initials carved into the surface, WD plus CD, but no sign of Delmont. He was gone. The missing years. Between 2004 and 2007, no employment records for Delmont exist, but his credit history shows purchases of surveillance equipment, multiple out-of-state motel stays, rental payments for an off-the-grid storage unit in Arkansas. Inside that unit, police later found more photographs of unknown teens, school maps, not just Thompson High, but schools in Kentucky, Indiana, and Illinois, and a chilling notebook labeled Recruits. Did Walt train a successor? Inside the notebook were 10 names. Some were missing, some crossed out, some had dates. One was familiar, Kayla Benson, 2022. The others, still being investigated, but all were tied to schools, and all of them had notes that echoed Walt's own style. Likes the dark, works after hours, asks no questions, no family nearby, easy influence, quiet, caretaker type. It was clear Walt wasn't just killing. He was grooming, not just victims, but partners. What this means, the task force now believes, Walt Driscoll may have started alone in the late 80s, but by the mid-90s, he had an accomplice, likely Craig Delmont. Together, they perfected a system of selective targeting, record tampering, and institutional silence. And after Walt's death, someone else may have picked up the keys. The story of Walt Driscoll was never just about one man. It was about a system that let it happen, about adults who looked the other way, about accomplices who knew just how much to do, and how much to let Walt do himself. And if Craig Delmont is still alive, he may be the last piece of the puzzle, because in the very last page of Walt's final journal, a date was circled, September 14th, 2022, the day before he died. Next to it, just 3 words, he's coming home. The return, we follow the manhunt for Craig Delmont, and the chilling clue he left behind in a high school 3 counties over. September 14th, 2022, Midridge County, Ohio, Oak Valley High School. The security guard thought it was a mistake. The lights in the maintenance corridor were flickering again. The janitor's closet was unlocked, and someone had left a mop leaning against the girls' locker room door. But when he checked the logs, there was no janitor on shift that night. The only person in the building after 7 p.m. was the assistant facilities manager, a man recently hired, with no references, under the name Charles Denton. That name didn't raise flags. But the face? When it was captured on a grainy security camera, a retired officer watching the footage later would say, "That's him. That's Craig Delmont." A new trail. After discovering Walt Driscoll's journal entry referencing he's coming home, investigators began combing through nearby school districts for unusual staff hires, maintenance logs, and withdrawn applicants. One school stood out, Oak Valley High, located 63 miles east of Shelbyville. The school had recently hired a new part-time maintenance assistant in August 2022 under a false name, Charles Denton, with no social security verification and no professional references. He lasted 27 days on the job, until the night before Walt Driscoll's death. Then he vanished, the janitor's closet, after the security incident. Oak Valley officials reported a series of disturbing discoveries in the weeks that followed. The master key set had gone missing for 48 hours. A school nurse's file drawer had been rifled through, with student medical records disturbed. A female student reported a strange man watching her in the library, claiming he looked like he belonged, but walked like he was hunting. The final red flag? A teacher found a folded piece of cloth, a girl's uniform blouse, stuffed into a vent above the auditorium. Pinned to it was a sticky note. It read, just like before, "The motel surveillance. FBI agents, now involved in the case, scoured regional motels. One clerk remembered a man fitting Delmont's description, older, thin, balding, with a long scar near his chin, who checked in for 5 nights under the name Mr. Keller." Security footage from a Maple Pines motel on Route 49 showed Delmont entering and exiting room 204 multiple times between September 9th to 14th. When authorities searched the room, they found empty takeout containers, a burner phone with only one number dialed, a landline tied to a defunct custodial training facility in Shelbyville, a Polaroid photo of Kayla Benson, taken just days before. He had been watching her and planning something. The message to Walt on the night of September 14th. Someone delivered an envelope to the nursing home where Walt Driscoll lived in his final days. The nurse on duty recalled. A man in a gray hoodie slipped it to the night drop slot. Inside the envelope, a photo of Thompson High School's old janitor closet. Its door open, a single key hanging on a hook, and beneath the photo, typed in courier font, "You started the music. I'll finish the dance." Hours later, Walt was dead. Official cause, natural causes, stroke, but his body was found gripping something tightly in his fist, a torn piece of denim. Authorities believe Delmont was in the building that night. The surveillance pattern. FBI cyber analysts discovered that before disappearing, Delmont had created multiple aliases using the same base identity. C. Denon, C. Delmo, Dent Craig. Accessed online floor plans for over 30 schools across Ohio and Indiana. Log into school staff portals using breached accounts to download student rosters and class schedules. He wasn't just stalking. He was preparing for what no one knew. The lost girl. 2 weeks after the Oak Valley incident, a sophomore named Rachel Kemp went missing. She had been last seen on school grounds at 5:15 p.m., helping clean up after drama rehearsals. Her disappearance bore eerily familiar traits. No forced entry. No sign of a struggle. Her phone left behind in her locker. Authorities feared the worst. But on the morning of October 2nd, Rachel was found alive, curled up inside a church 2 counties away, disoriented, cold, but physically unharmed. When asked who took her, she simply said, "The man with the janitor keys." The composite sketch. With Rachel's description and motel footage, the FBI released a composite sketch of Craig Delmont to the public for the first time. Tips flooded in. Most were dead ends, but one call stood out. A custodian at a community college in Columbus claimed a man matching Delmont's description had applied for a night shift job using the name Charles Derry. He said the man knew way too much about the layout. He wasn't hired. He disappeared again. The legacy of silence. What's most disturbing is how long Delmont and Walt operated without detection. They created a pattern of targeting schools with weak administrative oversight, identifying vulnerable students, socially isolated, with minimal support, exploiting detention rosters and facility access to isolate victims. Walt used silence and shadows. Delmont used systems. Together, they were architects of an invisible machine. Now, with Walt dead and Delmont on the run, that machine is dismantled, but not forgotten. Craig Delmont has not been found, but the trail he left proves he was more than just an accomplice. He was a planner, a continuer, maybe even the reason Walt kept going so long. Because every predator needs someone who opens a door. The blueprint. We examined the master plan left behind in Delmont's documents. Proof that this wasn't random, but part of a systematic design to erase the forgotten. And at the center of it, a file labeled only. The next school. October 2022, Shelby County Evidence Facility. Inside an unassuming file box marked Utility Maps. Tucked away in a dusty evidence room, investigators discovered a hidden folder. The initials matched. Craig Delmont. Walt Driscoll. The contents? Not ramblings. Not diary entries. But plans. Blueprints. Schedules. Rosters. It was a chilling revelation. These weren't two sick men killing on impulse. They were building an operational model, refined over years on how to identify, isolate, and eliminate vulnerable students without raising suspicion. And their next target had already been chosen. The contents of the folder. The folder contained 74 pages of documents, organized into 5 sections. Target school profiles, staff infiltration procedures, victim selection criteria, containment site design, post-operation exit routes. Each section was disturbingly detailed, typed, not handwritten, formatted like a manual, likely printed from a private device. It read like something between a corporate training document and a military field guide. Section 1. Target school profiles. A list of 12 schools was included. All shared common features. Older buildings with basement or sub-basement access. Limited or non-functioning security systems. High staff turnover. No full-time security personnel. Remote or rural locations. At the top of the list. Mill Creek Regional High School, Indiana. Population, 987 students. Janitorial staff, 3. Night shift, 1 solo. One disturbing note was highlighted. MC has music program with post-rehearsal student access past 6 p.m. minimal adult oversight. No cameras in auditorium wing. This school had not been informed of the threat until this document surfaced. Section 2. Staff infiltration procedures. This section outlined how Delmont and Driscoll had infiltrated schools under false identities, creating falsified resumes using expired or unverifiable credentials, using aliases with subtle consistency, e.g. C. Denton C. Derry W. Daniels, offering to volunteer first, then securing paid work, targeting custodial or part-time maintenance roles where background checks were superficial. Most chilling was this line: never stay more than 60 days unless embedded. Rotate every 2 to 3 districts. Revisit past only if clean. It was clear they had a system, and they were using it on a circuit. Section 3. Victim selection criteria. Perhaps the most disturbing portion of the file. Victims were classified into 4 tiers, with notes that revealed a callous, clinical approach. Tier 1. Students with no active guardianship or who were known runaways. Tier 2. Students with behavioral records that could justify disappearances. Tier 3. Shadow students, those academically invisible, often skipped over in teacher evaluations. Tier 4. Special assignments, students who noticed too much or came close to revealing operations. Each profile came with suggested strategies. Assigned attention, delay pickup, redirect to maintenance hallway after hours, utilize broken locker excuse. Under one student's mock profile, the comment read, already isolated, invisible to peers. No one will notice until final bell. Section 4. Containment site design. Here, the folder included hand-drawn blueprints for hidden rooms, compartments, and fail-safe chambers. These blueprints resembled the very architecture found in Thompson High's sub-basement. One plan, marked MC04, was clearly meant for Mill Creek High. It showed a hidden trapdoor beneath a mop closet, a supply cabinet with false rear panel access, a concealed crawl space with a cot, camera, and steel restraints. One sticky note attached read, soundproof, 2-day capacity, only use if untraceable. It was a death room disguised as janitorial storage. Section 5, post-operation exit routes. These pages listed exit strategies by region, with pre-planned motel addresses, aliases, vehicle types, and burner phones. Each escape plan was labeled by school code. One was labeled MC Run 02, depart westbound on RT-89, switch vehicle at Miller Station, burner Delta number 5. Each plan included expected escape time 12 to 18 hours, route interference contingencies, dead drop mail options with instructions for dumping evidence. They'd accounted for everything. Until Melissa escaped, until Elena survived, until Rachel Kemp made it out. The note to the future. At the very back of the folder was a single loose page. No formatting. Handwritten, likely by Delmont. There will always be more. The world makes more every year. Quiet ones, lost ones, forgotten ones. The key isn't the place. It's the pattern. You don't need a basement to bury someone. You just need time and silence. What it meant. This wasn't just about Walt and Craig anymore. It was about the idea they had created. A model designed to be replicated. A portable system of erasure, adaptable to any school, any town. It's unclear how many others may have had access to these plans. But one thing is certain. They were preparing to start again. Somewhere new. Somewhere quiet. The response. Once the folder's contents were made public to law enforcement agencies, the FBI launched Project Bellkeeper, a multi-state task force to identify past students matching the victim profile, unknown disappearances near schools Delmont had visited, custodial hires matching his aliases. As of this chapter, 3 more bodies have been recovered near abandoned school sites. 6 school districts have been flagged for security reevaluation. 2 former janitorial applicants are under federal watch. The discovery of the blueprint proves Walt and Craig weren't just predators. They were planners. Their crimes weren't erratic. They were engineered. And the most horrifying part, some of their targets still walk the halls today, unaware, vulnerable, and possibly already chosen. The investigation closes in on one last clue left behind in a time capsule buried beneath Thompson High. The secret Walt saved for last. A message for the next generation. November 2022, Thompson High School grounds. Time capsule ceremony. 50th anniversary celebration. It was supposed to be a happy occasion. A chance for the school and community to come together, to reflect, to celebrate, to remember. But when the backhoe lifted the rusted steel container from beneath the school's flagpole, the same ground where thousands of students had stood over decades, no one expected what they'd find. Inside the capsule, among the letters and trinkets from the class of 1972, there was something that didn't belong. A black velvet box, labeled only for the ones who see. Inside it, a janitor's key, a photograph, and a cassette tape. The key wasn't for any existing door in the school. The photo showed 5 students, smiling, arms around each other. But the tape would change everything. The tape begins. The audio was warped, muffled with age, but unmistakably the voice of Walt Driscoll. If you're hearing this, then you've already failed. Or maybe you've succeeded. Maybe you've seen enough. This school is made of memory, and memory is fragile, just like the ones we kept. But you won't find them all. Some are dust now. Others are waiting. We weren't monsters. We were custodians. We took the forgotten and gave them silence. And if you ever wonder why we stopped, we didn't. You just stopped watching. The 5 students in the photo, were quickly identified by alumni records, for were accounted for. One was not Haley Monahan, class of 2001, last known address listed as out of state, but her records showed something odd. She was marked graduated, but had no diploma copy. No post-grad transcripts. And no yearbook entry. Just like Kaylee Dorsey, she was added to the active missing persons list. But that wasn't all. Behind the photo, investigators found a handwritten message. She was the first. We buried her under the bell. No one heard her scream. Under the bell, with the principal's permission, forensic teams returned to the school grounds. Beneath the old bell stand, installed in 1985 as a memorial to the school's first graduating class, they found a false concrete slab. Below it, a sealed chamber 4 feet deep. Inside were a deteriorated school satchel, a bracelet engraved with the initials HM, and a partial skeleton wrapped in a moldy cheerleading jacket. Dental records confirmed. Haley Monahan, age 17. Time of death, May 2001. A full year before Elena Packard fled. She hadn't run away. She hadn't graduated. She had been the first. Why she was hidden? In Walt's journals, Haley's name never appeared. She was a ghost file, not listed among the 17, not crossed out, not even hinted at. But on the inside of the cassette tape case was a scribbled note. Before I had the plan, before Craig joined, before we got efficient, she was the first bell, the sound that started it all. Investigators now believe Haley's death was accidental, or at least unplanned, and that it triggered everything Walt would become. A ritual, a system, an obsession, the final message. The cassette ended with Walt speaking more clearly than ever before. You think you're closing this. You're not. This doesn't end in a basement or under a bell. It ends when you stop forgetting them, when you stop making it easy. Because there are still keys out there, still doors, still watchers. Not everyone wears a uniform. Some wear smiles. And they've already chosen the next ones. You'll hear it, one day. That sound, the final bell, then silence. One last key. The key inside the velvet box was analyzed. It didn't match any door in Thompson High, but a retired contractor recognized a model. It was part of a discontinued batch used in only one other location, St. Emmerich's Private School for Girls. Closed in 1998. It was an abandoned site, boarded up, forgotten. Investigators have since requested a warrant to search the building because they believe Walt or someone used it before and possibly buried more. Closure for the families. Since the discovery of the time capsule, Haley Monahan's family has finally been given closure. A memorial for all 17 confirmed victims was erected at Thompson High. Former students are being re-interviewed about any late-night encounters with Walt or Delmont. And the Department of Education has rolled out the Watchlight Protocol, a federally supported safety audit to monitor at-risk schools for similar patterns. The janitor's closet at Thompson High has been sealed permanently. The hallway where the sub-basement entrance once stood has been renamed the Hall of Voices. The legacy. This was never just a story about a killer in the walls. It was a story about the price of invisibility. About what happens when systems fail the quietest among us. Walt Driscoll didn't kill 17 students alone. He did it with the help of a society that didn't listen. And Craig Delmont, still out there, still watching, maybe, still waiting for another school to forget. In the quiet moments between class bells, when the halls are empty and the lights flicker, remember this. Sometimes the most dangerous people have the keys. And sometimes the door that leads to the darkest place was never locked at all.